So we had a few questions. Which killer is most common? Which map is most common? And how likely are you to escape? To answer these questions, we simply played 100 Dead by Daylight games. So this video will show you every game that we recorded data for to finally find the most played killer in EU Dead by Daylight. We collected data using Survivor Friends but also solo queuing to get a better average on survival rates in the game. So let's get right into it. Okay, this video will be split into 3 parts: most common map, most common killer, and finally, actual survivor rates from all the 100 games. So let's get right into it. Maps. The way we gathered data for these maps was we would play a game and say what the map was. Where you see the died column, that is where the killer killed all 4 survivors. To see if the map type would affect the survival rate, we said if we survived as well. Which, funnily enough, it did. The most common map type was Auto-Haven Wreckers, appearing 19 times in all 100. In 7 of these 19 games, all 4 survivors were killed, which means in 12 of the 19 games, at least 1 person lived. However, this was not the highest percentage for killers to achieve 4-man games. That stat belongs to the Crotus Premise Island, where killers would kill all 4 survivors 43% of the time. The worst map for killers was the Macmillan Estate, where the killer would kill 4 survivors 8% of the time. What was worth noting is that the top 3 maps which were played were Macmillan Estate, Coldwind Farm, and Auto-Haven Wreckers, which can be explained since these are the original map types which have multiple versions of their map, which would increase the probability of these maps occurring in the matchmaking system. Moving on to the killer data. So, we performed the same collection method with the killers as we did with the maps, saying how many times we faced each killer and at what rank. Overall, the most common killer was the Huntress. We faced her 15 times in all 100 games. However, she didn't have the highest kill percentage out of all of the killers. That went to the Trapper, who in 42% of the matches that he played, all survivors were killed in that map. But at higher ranks, from rank 8 downwards, the most common killer was the Trapper, who appeared 40% of these times, and that win percentage is down to that. And finally, survival rate. We recorded the survival rate for each killer and the likelihood for no one, 1 survivor, 2 survivors, 3 survivors, and 4 survivors to be the outcome of the game. What we found was, as mentioned, the Trapper had the most common 4-men games, but on average, 23% of the time, the killer would kill 4 survivors. 13% of the time, only a single survivor would live. 19% of the time, 2 survivors would live. 28% of the time, 3 people would live. And finally, 17% of the time, 4 survivors would survive the game. If you look across all the 100 games, the killer would kill at least 1 person 83% of the time, which for a game which is based on a killer killing the survivors simply isn't high enough. Thank you to anyone who has watched this video right through. This video took a while to put together and we would be grateful for any support.